So if gold is so great, then why did we stop using it? If it's such a sound form of money that we've used since 600 BC for over 2,500 years, why would we suddenly stop using it in favor of an unsound money? If the most important property of money is that it stores value, why would we ever start using a form of money that doesn't store value? Because the money we use today doesn't store value. If you look at the purchasing power of the US dollars, here we have a chart of that. From the year 1913 to 2019, you can see it's constantly going down. $100 in 1913 are only worth, in 2019, $3.87. That means the dollar has lost over 96% of its purchasing power in that period. What this means is if you had $100 in 1913 and you held on to that $100 for all this period, that $100 would only afford to you to buy $3.87 worth of things that you could have got with it back then. Saying this in another way, $100 today has the same purchasing power that $3.87 had back then. Just think about it. If you have $100 and you go out and you want to spend it, all the things you can get with that $100, let's say you can go out to eat at a restaurant, you can buy a t-shirt, you can get an ice cream cone, all of these things, put them all together, you could have gotten those same things in 1913 for only $3.87. So how come now you need so much money to buy the same quantity of things, the same things? Well, it's because we're creating so many units that each unit is worth less, has a smaller claim on goods and services. We've debased it so much that it lost so much purchasing power. It can't afford the same thing. You need so many more units to get the same quantity of things. And this is in 2019. We're now, at the time of recording this, 2024. So 5 more years. So now the purchasing power of the dollar from 1913 to today is almost at 98% loss. So the dollar has lost over almost 98% of its purchasing power in that period. Now, by the time you watch this recording, if it's a year from the time of recording, if it's a month, if it's a few weeks, the purchasing power is slightly less because we keep debasing the currency. It keeps getting lower. And this is why when you take a look at the price of gold in US dollars, it's constantly going up. Now, this has less to do with gold itself than it has to do with the US dollars, with the currency, because we're creating so much of the currency that not only is gold going up when you account for it in US dollars, but everything else is going up when you account for it in US dollars. It's not the things that are the problem, it's the denominator. It's the money we're using. We're creating so much of it, it doesn't hold value. We require many more of those units to get anything. Now I'm talking about US dollars, but if you live in another country, you're using a different currency. For example, I live in Canada, I use Canadian dollars, right? And if you live in a different country, you're using a different currency. There's 180 different currencies out there, all controlled by different states. So how did we go from gold, sound money that stores value, international cross-border global money, to currencies, 180 different currencies, where different states have complete monopoly on each currency and can issue as many currency units as they want and are constantly debasing that currency. So this is what this section is about. So now I'm going to play a little video. So this video was sent to me by Elias, the co-instructor of the course, which you guys are going to meet shortly. And I felt it really made for a good introduction to our section. So we're going to watch it and I'm just going to comment quickly on it.
Okay, so you know what I don't understand? This is what I don't understand. See this? See this? See that? This. This is worth $50? This is worth $5? This is the exact same piece of plastic. This is the same thing. We made up these arbitrary numbers. And then we said, we can't print more or else it'll be worthless. How about just don't let it be worthless? How about just don't tell anybody? Or just like, don't let it happen. We literally made this up. This is a construct. We made it up. Just don't let it inflate. Just don't. Like people, I get inflate, but I don't. Like, just don't let it. You let this happen. You let this happen. How about you just let everything else happen too? Why don't you just let stuff not inflate? Like, just deflate it.
I just love this video. I just love this video because this is what this section is about, is how we got to here, how we got to a moment where we're using these. Now, one more thing I wanted to note on this video is that this individual who isn't a finance person, she doesn't have a TikTok channel on finance. She just posts different things. You know, I went over her channels, just random things that she posts about. And when she came to talk about money, she's clearly realizing or saying like, this doesn't make sense. And this is what a lot of people are feeling. They feel it doesn't make sense. They can't put their finger exactly on what it is, but they know something is wrong. Something doesn't make sense. And even if they're not in finance, which most people aren't, and most people don't spend their life studying about money or looking into money. You know, we're born into a monetary system. We look at it and we assume that this is how it should be. We assume it's the right way it should be, because why would we be doing something that isn't right? But if that person spent time to do some research on it, read a few books about it, she would come to the same conclusions that we're coming to right now, that it doesn't make sense. And most people, you know, it's not a complicated issue, actually. Anybody who reads a little bit about the history of money will understand that this makes not a lot of sense. And people who haven't looked into it at all, which again, most people aren't supposed to look into it. If you're a young person, why are you supposed to study the history of money? Even people who have never looked into it kind of feel something is wrong. And this story that we're saying is spreading a little bit because the issues we're having with money are here. We're at the problems, the issues at our front doors. So that being said, well, let's answer that question. How did we get to here? How did we get to this? So how did we start moving away from gold as money? So let's take a look at gold's salability chart. At first view, it seems that gold is pretty saleable across all these planes. But the reality is that it's not gold itself that's this saleable. It's only this saleable because of improvements we've made on it. For example, if we look at scale salability, gold itself isn't that scale saleable. Every time you gotta purchase something with gold, you gotta cut a piece of the gold you have to be the exact weight of the thing you want to purchase. And the other person has to make sure that this gold has the right purity level in it. So there's some cost in transacting with gold. That doesn't make it that scale saleable. Every time you want a smaller or larger piece, there's costs involved in that. But that was improved because of coins. It's this layer 2 solution that we introduced. It's an improvement we've made on it that made it scale saleable. Now, if you want to purchase something, you can just you have different denominated coins and you can use that to purchase what you want to. You don't need to cut a piece every time, weigh it. You can just use a piece that both you and the receiving party know what the weight of it is and the purity level of it is. So there's less costs. It's more scale saleable. Even with space salability, coins made gold more space saleable. You can go around with just the pieces of coins that you need for a specific transaction. So it's easier to move. Now, layer 2 solutions can't improve on time salability. That's why the most important thing is time salability. If money is time saleable, the other things we can improve on through these types of technologies with improvements. And you know, if you look at this coin, the edges of this coin have these like ridges. It's like rigged. Why? Because this is anti-debasement technology. If somebody shaves a piece off this coin, you'll know there's a missing part. So these technologies, coins are, technologies. They are advancement improvements on our money. Now, when you look at the advent of coins and having coins, they did make gold extremely saleable across all these planes. But with time, as we started transacting with people that aren't nearby, there was a lot of costs to that. For example, if I'm transacting with somebody next door in my neighborhood, it's easy. I can walk around with a piece of gold and just buy what I want to buy, or silver most often. And so there wasn't a lot of costs. And when I'm saying silver, I just want to note here that most transactions, the money that was used the most throughout history was actually silver, not gold. Gold was used for the longest period and had the most impact. But since gold had so much value in each coin, most people didn't use it for day-to-day transactions. Like a gold coin could be somebody's monthly salary. But if you wanted to buy a piece of bread or something small, you would use silver. That's what people use for day-to-day transactions. That's why you always hear silver is the poor man's gold, because most people just use silver, and really rich people or for really big transactions, you would use gold. So the money that was used the most throughout history was silver. The money that was used for the longest period and had the most impact was gold. Anyways, so if you're transacting with somebody who isn't close by, he's in a different country, in a different continent, there's costs. Well, first, there's the cost of transferring that gold. You got to send that gold over to that person. There's costs in that. There's the time to transfer. It takes some time for them to receive that gold. Especially, with the advent of the telephone and transacting with people that are further away, where some transaction time is getting smaller, but the settlement time for the person to get the money is you can't shorten that, because you have to wait until they actually get it. So there's also the risk of theft. You're sending money to somebody, could be stolen along the way. There's two parties that know of that transfer. Somebody can get tipped off. It can be stolen. And then when it's stolen, well, gold, they can just spend the gold. Nobody's going to know that this gold is stolen. It's untraceable, And then there's also the cost of verification. You're getting gold, you get to test if it's actually authentic. Even countries who transfer gold to each other, they would always have to test if this gold is authentic, because they might get fake gold. So they'd have to melt it and test it and then reforge it. There's a lot of costs involved in that. So as we started trading with people that are further away, with globalization, international trade, gold started to be less space saleable, regardless if we had coins, even with the coins, because the coins, this layer 2 improvement solution didn't really help in transacting faster with people who are further away. So if you look at the chart we had earlier, this characteristic for gold being a good medium of exchange, it started being less good of a medium of exchange. Now, simultaneously, as we're trading with people that are further away, some people had their money with goldsmiths. Often people who had a lot of gold would store their gold with goldsmiths. Goldsmith had a safe where you could just put your money in that safe, and the goldsmith would just give you an IOU saying that, hey, they owe you that gold. And rich people or people who had a lot of gold did that to protect themselves from theft. If somebody has a lot of gold and people knew that this person had a lot of gold, they can just rob him. They can break into his home, kill him, take the gold, and gold is untraceable. It's their gold now and they can spend it wherever. So people who had a lot of gold would store it with goldsmiths, because goldsmith had the security to keep that gold there. Now the goldsmith would give the owner of that gold an IOU, and that person would just keep the IOU. If somebody robbed him of this IOU, well, they couldn't come back and claim this gold because this IOU had his name on it. So it's a way to have safety. It's like a safety deposit box that you have at the bank. Now, individuals who had IOUs like this, whenever they wanted to actually buy something, they would go back to the goldsmith. And again, the goldsmith is just keeping it for safekeeping. They can't use it. It's just there in their vault. They can go back to the goldsmith, give the IOU, get back their gold, and go buy something with it. But they started realizing that, hey, if I want to buy something from somebody, can't I just give them the IOU? And when they want, they can take this IOU and get the gold from you. And that's what started to happen, where these IOUs started becoming transferable, where one party can transfer them to another party, and the other party could then claim this gold when they wanted to. So they started being used as money. And people realized that, hey, using this paper as money is better than actually using the coins. So it started becoming a different type of layer 2 solution, where now, instead of using coins that have the gold inside of them, we can use a piece of paper. And this piece of paper is just a claim on gold. And it's the same thing. It keeps the same time salability. Because again, if somebody's paying me with an IOU, This IOU is transferable. I can transfer it to anybody, and anybody who has it, if they go to the goldsmith, they can exchange it and get the gold. And then the goldsmith will just tear it up and throw it in the trash because it's been claimed. Then it's just as good as gold, right? It has the same time salability, but it's better across these other planes. It's better in space because now I have a piece of paper that I can just put in my pocket, and that piece of paper can have any type of value. I can move a large transaction of gold with one little piece of paper. And it's also scale saleable. Now I can have different denominations that are small, large. Instead of just having specific coin values, I can have an IOU for a fraction of gold or a larger amount. So I can have a bunch of different denominations. Like right now, you can have dollars, cents, $50, $100, different denominations. So initially, these IOUs solved a lot of issues for gold. They were a different type of layer 2 solution than coins, because coins actually had the money in them, right? But this type of layer 2 solutions were a piece of paper that gave you the claim on the gold. So it didn't have the money in them. And that solved some issues, right? It solved a lot of issues. For example, if you're transacting with somebody in a different country, if you want to move the gold coin, you still have to move it physically. But now with these pieces of paper, if you have a goldsmith and that goldsmith has a branch in that other city, or let's say it's a bank and they have a branch in another city, then you can go to that bank, say, hey, transfer this paper, this money to that person who's living in a different country. And they would just take it and they would just break it, throw it out and issue a new one to that person in that other place. And they would have it instantly. So you can transfer money instantly because these pieces of paper don't actually have the money. They have the claim on the money. So it made money really easier to transfer in space, which was the biggest problem, right? Because we were starting to be more global, transacting with people from different countries, different continents, faster and faster. So that's how IOUs started to spread. They started to spread because they were very useful for us.